I stood there dripping, designer dress ruined, makeup streaming down my face. My father had just screamed that I wasn't his daughter anymore before shoving me into the decorative fountain. 200 guests in evening wear stood around laughing, applauding. My brother Brandon smirked beside his fiancée Amber. My mother looked away. Someone yelled, "She's lucky we even let her in." I pulled myself up, water cascading off my shoulders, and smiled through the humiliation. I looked directly at my father and said clearly, "Remember this moment." Then I saw headlights approaching the mansion gates. The black luxury vehicles pulled up the circular driveway with the kind of presence that makes people stop talking. Security personnel exited first, moving with practiced efficiency, and then my husband Marcus stepped out. He was wearing an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than most of the cars in the lot, and he commanded immediate attention without saying a single word. The crowd went silent so fast you could have heard a champagne flute drop. I watched as recognition rippled through the guests. Many of them knew Marcus from business news, had seen his face on the covers of financial magazines, knew exactly who he was and what he was worth. Marcus was the CEO of a major tech investment firm, and his company was worth billions with a capital B. My father's face drained of every ounce of color. He had just publicly humiliated the wife of one of the most powerful men in the state in front of 200 witnesses. My mother actually gasped audibly and grabbed my father's arm so hard her knuckles went white. My brother Brandon's confident smirk vanished, like someone had wiped it off with a cloth. And Amber, sweet, perfect Amber, her eyes went wide with what I can only describe as pure fear. Marcus walked calmly across the lawn to me, his shoes probably getting ruined in the damp grass, and he didn't acknowledge anyone else initially. He removed his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders. It was warm from his body and smelled like his cologne. He quietly asked if I was hurt, checking my arms and face with gentle hands. His calm demeanor was somehow more terrifying than if he had started yelling. The controlled fury radiating off him made people take actual steps backward. Finally, he turned to address the crowd. His voice was quiet, but it carried. He simply said, "I see we've interrupted quite a party." My father tried to laugh it off as family fun, called it a traditional fountain toss like that was something normal families did. He was sweating now, his bow tie suddenly looking too tight. He claimed I had always been so dramatic, turning innocent things into major incidents. My mother joined in with nervous laughter that sounded like breaking glass, suggesting we all go inside and dry off and have some champagne and forget this little misunderstanding. Other guests started awkwardly murmuring agreement, desperate to diffuse the tension. Some of them actually tried to approach Marcus to introduce themselves, their networking instincts kicking in despite the circumstances. I watched a city councilman attempt to shake Marcus's hand. Marcus looked at the extended hand like it was a dead fish and turned back to me. That's when Amber made her move. She suddenly clutched her stomach and stumbled backward. She fell to her knees on the perfectly manicured lawn, gasping dramatically. She cried out that I had put something in her champagne earlier, that she saw me tampering with drinks before the fountain incident even happened. Her voice was high and panicked and perfectly calculated. Brandon rushed to Amber's side immediately, playing the concerned fiancé. My father jumped on this opportunity like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. "See?" he said loudly for everyone to hear. "This is what we've been dealing with. This is why we had to intervene." My mother was already pulling out her phone, calling for an ambulance with shaking hands. Several guests pulled out their phones too, some calling for help, others recording everything. Amber was crying now, hyperventilating, saying she couldn't breathe. Someone shouted to check my purse. Before I could react, one of the venue security guards was going through my evening bag. He pulled out a small pill bottle that I had never seen before in my life. Unmarked white pills that Amber immediately claimed were sedatives, the same ones she said I tried to give her. The crowd turned hostile again in seconds. The brief moment of awkwardness when Marcus arrived was completely forgotten. Now I was the villain again. Accusations started flying from every direction. Marcus tried to defend me, but his voice was drowned out by the noise. People were shouting over each other, demanding to know what was wrong with me, asking how I could do something so dangerous. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. Amber was loaded onto a stretcher, still playing the victim perfectly. One hand pressed to her forehead, the other clutching Brandon's hand. Brandon climbed into the ambulance with her, shooting me a look of pure triumph as the doors closed. My father stepped forward, his confidence returning now that the narrative had shifted back in his favor. He demanded that Marcus take me and leave immediately. "Before we call the police and press charges for attempted poisoning," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Marcus and I were forced to leave. As we walked to the car, my wet shoes squishing with every step, I realized Amber had completely flipped the situation in a matter of minutes. The family had turned me from victim to villain faster than I could process what was happening. As we reached the car, my phone started buzzing in Marcus's jacket pocket where he'd put it. Text after text coming in. We drove away in silence. Through the rear window, I could see guests already huddled in groups, phones out, probably posting on social media. Marcus assured me we would handle it, that everything would be fine, but I saw the worry in his eyes. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was something bigger. In the car, Marcus held my hand tight and told me not to worry. But I was already worrying. I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to a nightmare I couldn't escape. Amber was recovering at the hospital. Nothing was actually wrong with her, just dehydration and a panic attack according to the official statement, but my family was spinning the story everywhere. Society blog posts appeared with headlines like "Tech CEO's wife accused of assault at engagement party." My phone exploded with messages from old friends asking what happened to you and, "Are you okay? And I never thought you'd do something like this." My mother called at 7 in the morning, crying so hard I could barely understand her. She kept saying I had destroyed the family's reputation, that I had embarrassed them in front of everyone who mattered, that she didn't know how they would ever show their faces in public again. When I tried to explain that I didn't do anything, she just cried harder and hung up. Then the extended family started calling. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. They had all heard the family's version of events. According to them, I had been mentally unstable for years, jealous of Brandon's success, unable to handle the fact that he was getting married. One aunt told me she always knew there was something off about me, even when I was a child. By noon, my father had given an interview to the local society magazine. I read it online, my hands shaking. He painted a picture of a troubled daughter who had married for money, who had always been difficult and ungrateful. He claimed they had been trying to get me help for years, but I refused treatment. He actually used the word delusional to describe me. My mother provided old photos from my awkward teenage years, the ones where I had braces and bad skin and hadn't figured out how to dress yet. The captions talked about concerning behavior and warning signs we should have noticed sooner. They made my normal teenage years sound like a descent into madness. Brandon posted a heartfelt message on social media about protecting his future wife from family toxicity. It got 3,000 likes in 2 hours. Amber posted from her hospital bed, looking weak and scared in a hospital gown, an IV in her arm. She wrote that this wasn't the first time I had targeted her, that I had been sending her threatening messages for months. She included screenshots of messages I had never sent. Marcus got a call from his board of directors at 2 in the afternoon. He took it in his office, and when he came out, his face was tight. A major investor group was threatening to pull funding from an upcoming deal. They were conservative, traditional families who knew my family socially. They didn't want to be associated with scandal. The deal was worth $300 million. Marcus tried to assure them it was all false, that I would never do something like that there had been a misunderstanding. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. Not doubt about me, but doubt about whether he could fix this. Then my father's attorney sent a cease and desist letter. It arrived by courier at 4 in the afternoon. The letter threatened harassment charges if I contacted any family member again. It referenced multiple incidents, all of which were completely fabricated. It included statements from party guests who claimed they saw me acting erratically all evening, drinking too much, making threats. These were people I had known for years. They were lying for my family. The letter also mentioned they were exploring a restraining order. Marcus and I sat in our living room that evening, the cease and desist letter on the coffee table between us. Marcus completely believed me. He never once questioned whether I had done what they claimed, but he admitted the business situation was serious. $300 million was not something his company could just absorb losing. He suggested we hire a crisis management PR firm, someone who specialized in this kind of thing. He asked me to avoid social media and public appearances temporarily. Just until this blows over, he said. I agreed because I didn't know what else to do. But I noticed Marcus seemed distracted, stressed in a way I had never seen before. He kept checking his phone, responding to messages from board members and investors. Late that night, I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling through my phone, torturing myself by reading the comments on Brandon's post, when I saw that Amber had been released from the hospital. There were already photos posted of her and Brandon house hunting for their post-wedding home. They were moving forward with their lives, smiling for the camera, playing the perfect couple. A local event planner posted about a beautiful spring wedding coming soon, tagged both of them. They were rushing the wedding, I realized. They were accelerating everything to lock in their victory, while I was stuck hiding in my house, unable to defend myself. My phone buzzed with a news alert. My father had released a formal statement to the press. I read it twice, unable to believe the words. The statement said the family was heartbroken and considering legal action. It included a quote, "Sometimes you have to protect the family from one of its own members." I looked at Marcus, asleep on the couch with his laptop still open, financial reports glowing on the screen. He was exhausted. This was destroying him too. I was destroying him. 2 weeks crawled by like 2 years. Brandon and Amber accelerated their wedding to 6 weeks away. They sent out rush invitations to everyone in their social circle, making sure to be deliberately public about excluding me. The wedding planner posted daily teasers on social media about the most elegant spring wedding of the season. Every post felt like a knife. Then the restraining order arrived. My father's lawyers filed for an official restraining order against me. They claimed I had been sending threatening messages to multiple family members. They produced evidence, screenshots of texts I never sent, from my phone number but with messages I would never write. They also included voicemails that sounded like my voice but were clearly edited or doctored. I could hear the cuts, the way sentences didn't quite flow naturally, but to someone who didn't know better, they sounded real. A hearing was scheduled in family court for the following week. When Marcus's lawyer looked into it, he discovered the judge assigned to the case was an old family friend of my father's. A clear conflict of interest, but by the time we could file an objection, the hearing date would have already passed. Meanwhile, Marcus's business crisis deepened. The $300 million deal officially fell through. The investors cited reputational concerns in their withdrawal letter, but it didn't stop there. The failed deal triggered penalty clauses in existing contracts. The total damage to Marcus's company was $450 million. His board called an emergency meeting. I wasn't there, but Marcus told me about it that night. Several partners were furious with him. One actually said he should have managed his personal life better, like I was a problem that could be managed, filed away, dealt with efficiently. I felt myself becoming isolated from everyone. Former friends stopped responding to my calls. My college roommate blocked me on social media without explanation. A cousin I had been close to since childhood sent me an email with just one line. I believe Brandon and Amber. Get help. Even Marcus's sister suggested maybe we should try couples therapy. Like the problem was our marriage and not my family's coordinated attack. Lindsay felt completely alone. The only person in the entire world who believed me was Marcus, and I was watching him lose everything because of it. The restraining order hearing was worse than I imagined. My family brought multiple witnesses. Party guests testified one after another, describing how I was acting strangely all evening. They said I was drinking heavily, which was a lie. I had 1 glass of champagne the entire night. One guest claimed I made verbal threats toward Amber. Another swore he saw me near the bar, slipping something into Amber's drink when I thought no one was looking. They were all coordinated lies, but they sounded credible. People I had known for years sat on that witness stand and lied directly to a judge. Marcus's lawyer was blindsided by the sheer volume of witnesses. We had expected maybe 1 or 2, not 8 people all telling the same false story. During a break, I went to the bathroom. 2 of the witnesses were already in there, touching up their makeup and comparing notes. They didn't see me in the stall. I heard one of them say, "Did I get the timeline right?" And the other one responded, "Brandon promised to invest in my startup if I testified convincingly." They were being bribed. My brother was paying people to lie about me. I tried to pull out my phone to record them, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. By the time I picked it up, my phone was dead. No proof, just my word against theirs, and my word was worth nothing anymore. The judge granted a temporary restraining order. I had to stay 500 feet away from all family members. I couldn't attend any family events. I couldn't contact any of them directly through any means. If I violated the order, I would be arrested immediately. The order lasted 6 months, which conveniently covered the entire wedding period and beyond. Marcus's lawyer immediately filed an appeal, but the appeals process would take months. The restraining order stood. That same day, Marcus faced his own crisis. His board members had been pressuring him about me for weeks, and it finally came to a head. One senior partner, a man who had been with the company since the beginning, suggested in a board meeting that perhaps a separation would be appropriate. He actually said those words in front of everyone. Marcus refused. He was angry. Angrier than I had ever seen him. But the damage was done. The board had lost confidence in him. Their company stock dropped on news of the failed deal. Business reporters started writing articles about Marcus's troubles, questioning his judgment, wondering if he was fit to lead. That night, Marcus came home late from an emergency board meeting. It was past midnight. He looked defeated in a way I had never seen. He sat down heavily on the couch and told me the board was threatening a vote of no confidence. If they removed him as CEO, he would lose control of the company he had built from nothing. I suggested maybe I should leave town for a while, let things calm down, give him space to fix his business without me being a constant problem. Marcus said no immediately. He said we would face this together, that he wasn't going to abandon me, but I saw doubt in his eyes for the first time. Not doubt about me, but doubt about whether we could actually survive this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard Marcus on the phone with his lawyers at 2 a.m, discussing options I couldn't quite hear. I realized my family wasn't just destroying me. They were destroying him too, systematically and deliberately. 6 weeks before the wedding, Amber and Brandon's engagement photos were everywhere. Every magazine, every social media platform, every society blog. They were the perfect couple overcoming family drama to find true love. The sympathy was entirely with them. I had become the villain in their love story. Then my father made his next move. 3 years ago, my grandmother died and left me $2 million and a property in her will. The money was in a trust with my name on it. I had full control. It was my inheritance. Legally mine, no question about it. My father filed a legal challenge to the inheritance. His lawyers claimed I had been manipulating my grandmother in her final years, taking advantage of an elderly woman, poisoning her mind against the rest of the family. They suggested I was mentally incompetent to manage money and needed a conservator. They wanted the court to place my inheritance under someone else's control, specifically, under my father's control. I hired a private investigator. His name was James, and he used to be a detective. Marcus found him through a business contact. James started following my family, documenting everything. Within a week, he discovered something that changed everything. My mother had been meeting with Amber twice a week. Not just casual coffee. They went to expensive restaurants, went shopping together at high-end stores, spent hours in each other's company. James got photos of them laughing together, hugging, looking for all the world like close friends or maybe even mother and daughter. They weren't just tolerating each other for Brandon's sake. They were partners in this. Amber wasn't just marrying into the family. She had orchestrated this entire situation, and my mother was helping her. Then my father's lawyers filed a petition to have me declared mentally incompetent, not just for managing the inheritance, incompetent for everything. They claimed I was unable to manage my own affairs, that I was a danger to myself and others. They used the party incident, the restraining order, the threatening messages as evidence. They requested a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. The evaluation would be done by a psychiatrist my father had already selected. James looked into him. Dr. Gerald Thornton had testified in 11 similar conservatorship cases. He had found the patient incompetent in all 11 cases. He was known for working with a specific law firm, the same one my father was using. He was basically for hire. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks before the wedding. If the judge ruled in my father's favor, I would be declared incompetent. I would lose access to my inheritance. I would need permission to make basic life decisions. I would essentially lose my legal autonomy. Then Marcus came home with worse news. His company was facing a hostile takeover attempt. Anonymous investors had started buying up shares aggressively. It was a clear, coordinated attack. Marcus's lawyers investigated and discovered the investment group had connections to my father's business associates. I understood then. This had never been just about humiliating me. My father saw an opportunity to destroy Marcus's company and profit from it. He could buy the company cheap after tanking its value, then sell it or restructure it for massive profit. This was about money, power, and revenge, all rolled into one. Marcus's business partners presented him with an ultimatum. Either he divorced me and regained the board's confidence, or they would vote him out as CEO. They gave him 1 week to decide. Marcus told me about it that evening. He was angry, pacing the living room, saying he refused to even consider it. But I saw the position I had put him in. Everything he had built, everything he had worked for his entire adult life, was collapsing because of me. Because of my family, yes, but it was my connection to them that made me the target. My mother called that night. Despite the restraining order, she called from a blocked number. Her voice was sweet, concerned, almost loving. She suggested there was an easy solution to everything. If I quietly surrendered my inheritance, left town, divorced Marcus, the family would drop all legal actions. We could all move on. She made it sound reasonable, logical, even kind. She said, "We just want what's best for everyone, sweetheart." She implied Marcus would be better off without me, that I was holding him back, that he deserved someone who wouldn't bring this kind of chaos into his life. After she hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. She had planted seeds of doubt that I couldn't quite root out. The next day, I had a consultation with my lawyer about the competency hearing. He was honest in a way that terrified me. He said things looked bad. The psychiatrist my father hired had a reputation. Judges tended to trust his testimony. The judge assigned to my case was known for conservative family values. He might be sympathetic to my father's concerned parent act. My lawyer said, "Prepare for the possibility we lose this. If we do, you could lose your inheritance, your reputation, possibly even your freedom if they push for ongoing psychiatric evaluation." That night, I found Marcus up late, reviewing company financials. His face was drawn, exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes. I knew he would never leave me voluntarily. He loved me too much for that. But I was destroying everything he had worked for. I felt completely trapped, like I was drowning and pulling him down with me. The competency hearing was scheduled for 3 days before the wedding. The courtroom was packed. My family brought everyone they could find. Supporters, friends, distant relatives. It felt less like a hearing and more like a performance. My father played the grieving, concerned parent perfectly. He wore a somber suit and spoke in a quiet, pained voice. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue throughout the entire proceeding. The witnesses came one after another. My former college roommate testified that I was unstable in school. She talked about mood swings and how I isolated myself. She made normal college behavior sound like mental illness. The truth was I studied hard and didn't party as much as she did, but she twisted it into something sinister. A high school guidance counselor testified that I had troubling behavior as a teenager. She said I refused to participate in family activities and seemed withdrawn. She didn't mention that I was being bullied by Brandon and avoided family events because of it. She just made me sound antisocial and disturbed. Our family doctor testified that he had recommended therapy for stress management a few years ago, and I declined. He made it sound like I was refusing necessary mental health treatment, when in reality, I just didn't have time and didn't think I needed it. All of it was coordinated. All of it was normal life events twisted and reinterpreted to paint me as unstable. Then Brandon presented recordings. He claimed he had been trying to help me for months and recorded our phone conversations out of concern. The recordings were edited masterfully. He removed all context, cutting out his own words and leaving only fragments of mine. In one clip, I said, "I know what you're doing." Without context, it sounded paranoid and threatening. With context, I had been talking about how he kept criticizing my wedding gift choices. He played another recording where I said, "They're all lying to you." Again, without context, it sounded delusional. With context, I had been telling him that his friends were giving him bad investment advice, but the full conversation wasn't played. Just the fragment that made me sound unstable. Brandon testified that I kept saying crazy things about Amber being out to get me, about the family conspiring against me. He painted me as paranoid, delusional, unable to accept that my brother was happy. Then Amber took the stand. She was masterful. She cried at exactly the right moments. She described how I had always hated her from the moment we met. She claimed I sent threatening messages before the party, that I grabbed her arm that evening and whispered threats. She described her fear of being poisoned with such genuine emotion that I almost believed her myself. She mentioned she was now in therapy because of the trauma I caused. She said she wakes up with nightmares. She's afraid to drink anything at social events. The judge seemed very sympathetic. The psychiatrist, Dr. Gerald Thornton, took the stand as an expert witness. His credentials were impressive and listed at length. Multiple degrees, decades of experience, published papers. He testified about patterns of delusional behavior, persecution complexes, personality disorders. He said based on the evidence presented, I showed clear signs of mental instability and poor judgment. He recommended conservatorship for my own protection. He used phrases like, unable to manage her own affairs and danger to herself and others. My lawyer tried to object repeatedly, but was overruled by the judge who seemed to hang on every word Dr. Thornton said. Then my father's lawyers called two of Marcus's business partners to testify. They looked uncomfortable, but they came. They reluctantly testified that the situation had created instability in the company. They admitted Marcus had been distracted, that business was suffering. One suggested Marcus had been making poor decisions lately. It damaged both me and Marcus. It implied I was having a harmful influence on him, that my presence in his life was destructive. The judge listened to everything with an increasingly sympathetic expression toward my family. When it was finally over, he ruled there was sufficient evidence of instability to order a full psychiatric evaluation. I would undergo 30 days of evaluation at a facility chosen by the court, which meant chosen by my father. I was going to be institutionalized. The judge set a follow-up hearing in 45 days. If the evaluation found me incompetent, my father would become my conservator. He would control my inheritance, my finances, my medical decisions, everything. My lawyer immediately filed an appeal, but appeals take time. The evaluation order was effective immediately. That same evening, while I was still reeling from the hearing, Marcus's board held an emergency meeting. They voted no confidence in Marcus. He was removed as CEO effective immediately. The board chairman, who had been friendly with my father's business associates, took over as temporary CEO. Marcus was devastated. This was the company he had founded, built from nothing into a billion-dollar enterprise. And now it was taken from him. The stock price plummeted on the news. Business reporters wrote articles declaring it the fall of a tech titan. Through his lawyers, my father made one final offer. I could voluntarily admit myself to a psychiatric facility and stay for 90 days. I would sign over my inheritance. I would divorce Marcus. In exchange, the family would drop all legal action. My father wouldn't pursue permanent conservatorship. The alternative was forced evaluation. Lose my inheritance anyway. Possibly lose my freedom for years. The deadline was the next morning, before the wedding. That night, Marcus and I sat together in our home. Everything was falling apart. He had lost his company. I was facing institutionalization. In 2 days, my family would celebrate their wedding and their total victory over us. Marcus held me and said we would fight this. But I saw the defeat in his eyes. Late that night, I found him in his office. He was staring at a folder on his desk. When I entered, he quickly closed it. He said he was just reviewing our legal options, but I had seen what was in the folder. Divorce papers. The ones my father's lawyers had sent. My own husband was considering it. Not because he didn't love me, but because I had destroyed his entire life. Because staying with me meant losing everything he had worked for. That was the moment I felt completely alone. More alone than I had ever felt in my life. The wedding day arrived on a beautiful spring morning. Social media flooded with pre-wedding posts. Amber and Brandon's perfect day was about to begin. The venue looked stunning in all the photos. White roses everywhere, elegant decorations, a string quartet warming up. I wasn't invited, obviously. The restraining order meant I couldn't go anywhere near the venue anyway. I had made my decision. I was going to take my father's deal. I couldn't watch Marcus lose everything because of me. I wrote a goodbye letter, sitting at the kitchen table while Marcus was in the shower. I planned to sign the papers, check myself into the facility voluntarily, and leave Marcus free to rebuild his life without me. I had accepted total defeat. Then Marcus came home that morning with his lawyer. His face was unreadable. They asked me to sit down for an important conversation. The lawyer had divorce papers prepared. Fresh copies. Official looking, Marcus said. I think we need to consider all options. He talked about protecting what was left of his assets. He mentioned the board might reinstate him if the situation resolved. He suggested a temporary separation might be best for both of us. His voice was flat, businesslike, completely unlike himself. I felt my heart shatter into pieces. After everything we had been through, he was actually choosing his career. I didn't blame him. I understood. But it destroyed me anyway. My phone rang. It was my father's assistant. She said if I wanted to say goodbye to my family before going to the facility, I could come to the wedding venue right now, before the ceremony. Your father is willing to see you one last time. It was obviously a trap. One final humiliation before they locked me away. But I didn't care anymore. I had already lost everything. What was one more humiliation? I agreed to go. Marcus tried to stop me. He said it wasn't safe, that I shouldn't go anywhere near them. But I was numb. I barely heard him. I just wanted it to be over. I arrived at the country club at 11 in the morning. The wedding setup was in full swing. Flowers being arranged, decorations being hung. Guests starting to arrive early. I was escorted by my father's assistant to a private room away from the main venue. My father, mother, Brandon, and Amber were all waiting there. They were already dressed for the wedding. My father in his tuxedo, my mother in a pale blue dress, Brandon in his groom's suit, Amber in her wedding gown. She looked beautiful. They all looked triumphant. My father was magnanimous in victory. He said they had to do this for my own good. That I needed help they couldn't provide. That sometimes tough love meant making hard decisions. My mother cried fake tears about losing her daughter, but knowing it was necessary. Brandon said he hoped I would get the help I needed, and maybe someday we could be a family again. Amber smiled sweetly and said no hard feelings. They had all the papers ready. Inheritance transfer documents, facility admission forms, divorce agreement. My father's lawyer was there to witness and notarize everything. They wanted it done before the wedding ceremony started in 2 hours. Final humiliation. Signing away my entire life during their celebration. I held the pen in my hand. I looked at the papers. Everything my grandmother left me because she loved me. My freedom. My marriage. All of it gone. I thought about Marcus looking at those divorce papers last night, about being locked in a psychiatric facility while they danced and celebrated, about losing everything to their cruelty. I was about to sign. The door opened. I expected Marcus's lawyer with more papers. Instead, police officers entered. 3 of them in full uniform. My father smiled. He actually smiled. He thought he had arranged this. Thought he was having me arrested for violating the restraining order. He said, "Officers, thank you for coming. As you can see, she's violating the order by being here." The lead officer cut him off. "Mr. Patterson, we're not here for your daughter." I looked up, confused. Behind the officers, Marcus entered. But he wasn't defeated. He was smiling. And behind him was a woman I didn't recognize. She was carrying folders and some kind of recording equipment. Marcus said to me, "Sorry I'm late, darling. The timing had to be perfect." My father's face went white. Brandon tried to move toward the door. The officers blocked him. Amber's sweet smile vanished completely, replaced by something cold and calculating. Marcus walked over to me. He took the papers from my hands and tore them up. He said, "You're not signing anything." "They are." The room erupted in confused, angry voices. But Marcus's calm voice cut through all of it. "Show them," he said. The woman with Marcus introduced herself as Helen Torres. She was a private investigator, former FBI agent, specialized in fraud cases. Marcus had hired her 3 months ago, right after the engagement party. I had no idea. Helen had been investigating my family this entire time. She began laying folders out on the table like she was dealing cards. First revelation: Amber's real name wasn't Amber. It was Amy Blackwell. She was a professional con artist. Helen had tracked her through 3 wealthy families over the past 5 years. The pattern was always the same. Get engaged to a wealthy son. Create drama to isolate him from family or turn family against someone else. Then get a settlement in a breakup or marry and divorce with a huge payout. Helen had photos, documents, police reports from other cities. There were warrants out for fraud in 2 states under different aliases. One family had lost $800,000 to her. Another lost their family business. Brandon's face went gray. Amber, or Amy, sat perfectly still. While investigating Amber, Helen discovered Brandon's side business. He had been embezzling from my father's company for 2 years, using shell corporations to hide money, falsifying invoices, creating fake vendors. The total theft was over $800,000. Helen had bank records, transaction logs, a complete paper trail. She laid it all out while Brandon tried to speak, tried to explain, but nothing came out except strangled sounds. But it got worse for my father. Helen's deeper investigation revealed his company was nearly bankrupt. He had been cooking the books for years, hiding massive debt, inflating assets. That's why he wanted my inheritance. The $2 million would have temporarily covered his losses. He was going to use the incompetency claim to access my funds, then blame the financial losses on my mismanagement when everything collapsed. Helen had forensic accounting reports. Evidence that would hold up in any court. Dr. Thornton, the psychiatrist who testified against me, had been involved in 11 similar cases, always hired by the same law firm, always found patients incompetent, always when wealthy families wanted to control someone's inheritance. A state medical board investigation was already underway. His testimony in my case was inadmissible. His medical license would likely be revoked. Helen had a tech expert analyze all the evidence against me. The text messages were sent from spoofed numbers using readily available software. The voicemails were edited using audio manipulation tools. The expert had detailed forensic analysis proving none of it came from my phone or my voice. Several witnesses at the party had been paid. Helen had the bank transfers, payments from Brandon's account to their accounts, all dated right before they agreed to testify. One witness had already agreed to testify against my family in exchange for immunity. But here was the thing I didn't know. Marcus was never actually removed as CEO. It was strategic theater to make my family confident, to make them think they were winning. His board had been in on it the whole time. They staged the vote of no confidence. The failed investment deal was also staged. Meanwhile, Marcus's company had been quietly buying up my father's company stock through intermediaries. Marcus now owned controlling interest in the Patterson family company. My father's company effectively belonged to Marcus now. Then Helen pulled out a recording device. 3 weeks ago, she had posed as an assistant to the wedding planner. She wore a wire to a meeting with Amber, Brandon, and my mother. The recording captured everything. Amber admitting the party incident was planned. Brandon laughing about the edited recordings he made. My mother discussing how they would divide my inheritance money between them. They were so confident, so sure they had won, that they confessed everything. Every detail of the conspiracy. The recording was crystal clear, fully admissible in court. Then, one more revelation. Helen's investigation showed my mother had been having an affair with my father's business partner for 2 years. They had planned to take my father's company and my inheritance money. They were going to leave my father and start a new life together. My mother was manipulating my father as much as she was manipulating me. Even my father didn't know about this part. His face as he learned about my mother's betrayal would have been satisfying if I wasn't so stunned. The police officers moved forward. Amber was arrested for fraud, identity theft, and outstanding warrants from other states. Brandon was arrested for embezzlement. My father was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. My mother was arrested for conspiracy and fraud. They were all led out in handcuffs. My father tried to argue, tried to pull rank, tried to invoke his lawyers. It didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Wedding guests outside were starting to realize something was wrong. Some tried to come in and saw the arrests happening. Phones came out. Social media posts began immediately. The wedding of the season became the scandal of the decade in real time. I was in shock. I could barely process what was happening. Marcus sat down next to me and explained everything. He had known from the beginning that I was innocent. But he also knew my family was dangerous. He couldn't just defend me. He needed to let them reveal themselves completely. He couldn't tell me because my genuine reactions were necessary. If my family suspected I knew what was really happening, they would have been more careful. They would have covered their tracks better. My pain, my fear, my desperation had to be real. The moments I thought he was wavering, considering divorce, giving up on me, those were the hardest moments of his life. But he never wavered. Not once. Even when I saw those divorce papers on his desk, he was reviewing papers Helen had prepared to use against my family. The wedding planner came in, horrified and confused. 200 guests were outside waiting. The venue staff didn't know what to do. Marcus calmly told the planner to cancel everything. He suggested donating the food to a local shelter and the flowers to the hospital. The guests would figure out what happened soon enough from social media. Before my father was led away, Marcus explained the company takeover. My father had built the company but nearly destroyed it through fraud and mismanagement. Now Marcus owned it. He would restructure it properly, keep the employees, run it ethically, but my father would have nothing. The perfect reversal. The news spread like wildfire. Extended family members who had believed the lies started calling to apologize. I ignored most of them. I only accepted an apology from one cousin who admitted she should have trusted me. Everyone else got blocked. With the psychiatrist's fraud revealed and all the evidence against my family shown, the judge immediately vacated the restraining order. All petitions against me were dismissed. The judge issued a formal apology. The judge himself was now being investigated for bias. My record was completely cleared. Society bloggers who had posted about the unstable tech wife scrambled to issue retractions and apologies. The story became national news briefly. Headlines like "Tech CEO takes down corrupt in-laws" appeared everywhere. But Marcus and I released a simple statement asking for privacy and then disappeared from public view. 6 months later, Brandon pleaded guilty to embezzlement. He served 2 years in prison. Amber was awaiting trial on multiple fraud charges across several states. My father's company was restructured under new management and became profitable again. Employees were grateful. I donated a portion of the profits to domestic abuse charities and mental health organizations. My mother and father divorced. Both faced financial ruin and complete social exile. Some extended family members cautiously reached out. Some relationships were salvageable. Most were not, but Marcus and I were stronger than ever. I learned that patience and strategy beat impulsive revenge every time. That letting people reveal their true nature is more powerful than constantly defending yourself. That sometimes looking defeated is how you lure your enemies into exposing themselves completely. Justice takes time, but it's worth the wait. Marcus taught me what real love looks like. It means protecting your partner even when they don't know they need protection. It means enduring their doubt and pain, because you know the truth will eventually set them both free. 1 year after the fountain incident, Marcus and I had a private dinner at our favorite restaurant. We toasted to remembering that moment. I had kept my promise. Everyone remembered it, but not the way they expected. I had survived the worst betrayal imaginable. I came out stronger. I had truth, justice, and real love. The family who tried to destroy me destroyed themselves instead, and I built something better from the ashes. The message is simple. You can overcome even complete betrayal. Sometimes the best revenge isn't crushing your enemies. It's letting the truth speak for itself. Real victory isn't making others suffer. It's building a life they can never touch. Have you ever experienced betrayal from people you trusted? How did you find the strength to move forward? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming the impossible. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive their own battles. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, sometimes the people who try to break you end up breaking themselves. Stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone make you doubt your worth.